Can you see up there? Okay, good. And share the screen. Always, no matter what I do. Okay. All right. Now, I've said this a million times, but I'll say it again. The entire business that you're involved in can be summed up in three parts. Okay. The job of a realtor is to find the customer. Pretty basic. Sell the customer something and find another customer. Okay. We can talk about how to find other customers, how to get referrals, repeat business, those kind of things. But in the end, a good realtor finds customers. That's what they do. Now, the way we structured our brokerage here is, for the most part, I find the customers, and through the Zillow program, through other things, and you guys just work the customers. But if you want to go to the next level, you have to start to figure out ways to generate your own customers. And usually, what we talk about when we start is, I pretty much am going to be supplying to you buyers. Okay. There's a few listings that come through Zillow. There's referrals we get from other Berkshire Hathaway brokerages. There's people who walk in the door because they know Berkshire Hathaway or Florida Showcase Properties in the past. But for the most part, the new agents are starting out with buyers. Okay. So what you want to do is to come up with an idea of how you're going to get the other side of the equation, the listings. All right. And that's really not what this meeting is about. All right. When you actually start business planning out, and once your business has gone beyond just how many leads am I going to get from Zillow, how many am I going to convert, how much money am I going to make? It's pretty much what we do now. I'm going to sit floor time. How much am I going to get out of that? All right. When I did a business plan for myself, because I did a lot of listings, okay, I did 50 some odd rooftop listings in my first year. So I know that's kind of weird to you guys, but that's what I did. But when I was planning out my listing business, there are three parts to it. One is, the first part is, you got to get in the door. You have to successfully get a listing appointment. How do you do that? We've gone through that in other training sessions. Okay. The second thing is, once you get in the door, assuming that at least some of the times you get in the door, other people are going to get in the door too, you've got to win the listing. Okay. And we've talked about that in other training sessions. How do you do that great listing presentation? What are the benefits to working with Berkshire Hathaway? What do you have to offer that the other agents don't? Okay. There's a really neat link in here from a page I recommended you guys years ago, but basically, go ahead and pop it up there. I won't go through the whole thing. But this guy has a lot of cool ideas of how to make sure that once you get invited to pitch yourself as a listing agent, how do you then get more of those listings? Okay. There's a video here. He talks about having a listing appointment marketing plan. You might think, well, I can't put a pitch like that together. They're already put together. I can help you put the slickest thing in the world together. But believe it or not, the number one question of somebody interviewing listing agents is, what is your marketing plan? So it would pay to have a good one, So that goes through that a little bit. Testimonial videos. Testimonials, at least, we're getting these, you guys are getting copied in on some of these Rate My Agent things. Those things should all be put into a very slick presentation on paper so that they can be added to your listing packages. Those do matter. But if you get somebody who really loves you, turn on your phone video recorder and let them go. These are kind of cool things to have. Okay. I never heard this idea before I read this, but I like this, and I actually used it a couple of times. If you're in a position to send a package of stuff, and a lot of people say, I want you to come and see my house, or come and pitch me on a listing, next Thursday. A lot of people will send what they call a pre-listing package that gets a lot of the stuff out of the way, so that you're not just sitting at the table letting them read it. And this is actually a pretty cool idea. If you need to know that something is being delivered to somebody and you want to make them feel important, send the package certified mail. It costs like $3. But the only way they're going to get it is to sign for it. Nobody throws away a package that they have to sign for. They go through it. I just thought that was a cool idea. I never thought of that. I've used it for collections and things, but I've never used it for sales. This is another good idea that I've always talked about, which is if you're going in there and you know there's 2 or 3 agents going to follow you, and a good thing to do is to basically have a little list of questions. Here's a list of questions that people like to ask their realtor, and I'd just like to answer them for you. You get to pick the questions when you do this, and they can all abound to your strength, you know? So your question, Shonda, wouldn't be, you know, how many years have you been selling real estate? You're not going to look good in that question. Okay. How many hours a week do you put in as a realtor? You know, how many customers are you working with currently? You'd want to tailor your questions to make sure that you win the competition. But anyway, if you want to, this isn't the point of this meeting, but I just want to make sure I covered that a little bit in this, so you can do some research on that if you're curious. We do that in other things. The one I want to talk about right now is this. When you business plan out get listings in your business, you say, how many times can I get a listing appointment? You know, how many things do I got to send out to get those appointments? How many am I going to convert? Meaning how many am I actually going to be the listing agent when the smoke clears and I get to put online and sign a contract to get a commission? And that was it. Okay. So if you came into the business in the last few years, there is no third step to figuring out what you're going to make from your listings. And those days are over. Okay. Because the one thing that you don't have to do is, my last line was 75%. So if I generated $10 million worth of listings, a point or that I actually put on MLS, I only budgeted to sell $750,000 worth. I assumed that a quarter of my listings would not sell fast enough for that customer not to fire me. Okay. Came in at 82 on average over time, 82%, but figured on 75. Why? Because the county in general was at 45%. 45% of listings sold from the original broker. Okay. So that's just the way it went. Back then, average days on market were closer to a full year than 6 months. They were over 200 days. They were almost 250 days on the market was the average time on market. Crazy. Okay. Right now it's about 45, maybe even 40 in some areas. So it's nothing like that. But I want to kind of get you used to these fundamentals while you have the time to screw up a little bit, okay? Because I'm talking to people, it's been 4 months, they're pissed, they want to go with another guy, they want to get out of their listing contract. And that's when I end up training you guys on how to handle this and be proactive so you don't get to that point. But today I want to just kind of go through that a little bit. Here's what I want you to realize, okay? In 2020, it was, convert the listing appointments to listings and then collect all your money. That's what it was last year. This year, it's only moderately going to be different. It's probably going to be collect 90 cents on the dollar of your listings, okay? By next year, it's going to be down to 75. Okay, and again, 75 is comparable to my 75. The county was at 45. Okay, so still not going to be nearly as bad as it was. All right, so the numbers that I look for when I'm looking at that, this is last year. Okay, there were 107 expired listings. Okay, and again, I didn't run the numbers, but my sense is usually if a listing expires on at least 20% of those expired listings. The next listing comes on in 60 days and it's the same guy. Okay, so they didn't actually lose them. They just refreshed the listing. Okay, but anyway, 107 out of, and 1,250 sold. Now, this is, I took the last quarter going from today backwards. Okay, so 3 months, 90 days, whatever you want to look at, that's what I'm looking at. Okay. So in this year, when sales have slowed, generally, house sales really haven't. We sold as many houses in the same time period as we did last year. Okay. But almost twice as many listings have expired. So it's starting. Okay. Now, just to give you a sense of this, my first year in the business, the same time period, there were 614 homes sold, 526 listings not sold. All right. So that's actually, that year was a little better than what I remember from 2013. I think that was the worst year. But in that case, it's, what is that, 57% or 43%? You lost 43% of your listings on average. Didn't get paid for them, did them for free. Not good. All right. So we're only starting. We're not to desperate times yet. In a slowing market, the things you want to do. Number one, at your listing appointment, you can up your odds of not putting a listing up for 6 months, losing it to some other guy who sells it 3 months later and you don't get paid. He does. Okay. You can do that by extending the listing contract, by basically laying off some of this risk on the seller. Look for a 9-month listing contract. If you're meeting with somebody in March, go to the end of the year. They don't even notice. It's not a set period. It's just for the rest of the year. And that's a 9-month contract if you do it in March or April, right? My rule of thumb was, if people want to overprice their home by more than 5%, then I want an extended listing agreement. You're asking me, who's taking your home on spec, you're asking me to do all this work for less possibility of a reward in the end. All I ask you is, if I'm betting on you, you bet on me. We're business partners, okay? You're asking me to do something at a degree of difficulty beyond normal. I would like a little extra time to do it, okay? So look for those longer listings when you can get them. The other thing you have to do is you have to basically make a verbal contract with your customer that you are going to stay in touch with them, okay? Biggest question asked at a listing appointment: what is your marketing plan? Biggest complaint about an agent? It's like, this is the biggest complaint, and the second biggest is way down here on the list. No follow-up. I never hear from my agent, okay? Which just means they haven't heard from you enough. It doesn't mean they say never. That just might mean you haven't called them in a week, okay? All circumstances are different. But the way to avoid that problem is to basically make a commitment at your listing, but when you're signing the contracts and everything. And the way I used to do it was, and again, remember, I did the bulk of my listings at a time when, you know, listing average was, I don't think it ever dropped below 180 days the whole time in that whole period before I became a broker. So my experience level is on the exact opposite side of the selling world than you guys have been trained, except for Lori. Lori was around for both. So what I used to do with people is I say, listen, I'm obviously going to call you anytime there's a showing. I'm going to call you and ask you for, you know, to schedule with you. I'm going to call you as soon as I get feedback from the realtor. I'm going to call you if I have trouble getting feedback from the realtor, just to let you know, so you don't think I've forgotten about you. Those contacts we're just going to make, you know, naturally. What I'd like to do is to figure out from you, what is kind of that term then I'm just going to call you and update you on everything. You know, I have people who want me to talk to them every day. Well, I have one guy who wanted to do that, but every day. I've had some guys who tell me, I don't need to talk to you until you have an offer for me to consider. And then almost everybody, that's one guy on either end of the stream. Most people are in the middle. A lot of people want me to call, you know, make sure I call them with a complete update once a month. Some people every 2 months, some people every 2 weeks. I don't know what's going to be right for you. Now, what I just gave them was 3 choices. Most people will go in the middle once a month. Okay. The rest of them will go, almost all of the rest of them will go at 2 weeks. Almost none of them will go 2 months. So when you give 3 choices on time, shortest and middle is usually the 2 that will take up almost everybody you offer that to. But I didn't offer them that. I said they can have anything they want. But if you say you can have anything you want, for example, 1, 2, or 3, people are going to pick 1, 2, or 3. Okay. But I used to get it to the point where I would sit with someone and I would say, okay, Ellen, we've agreed that, you know, we're pricing it at 200,000, but if in the first 2 weeks we don't get at least 5 showings or an offer, we're going to reduce it to 100 and whatever. Okay. Write that all down. I used to write that on the outside of a manila folder. Everything we agreed to, I'd write there. And then the other thing, of course, I'm going to call you for anything that's immediate, like appointments or feedback and stuff like that. But I'm also going to give you a call every 2 weeks and just give you an update on the market. We'll make decisions on whether we need to do anything differently. I'll let you know what's sold, you know, how many showings we have, how many showings other people have. We'll go through the online marketing results, things like that. Okay. And then when I got back to the office, I would put a note in my calendar to call Ellen in exactly 2 weeks from that moment. And then I would put recurring every 2 weeks. And so every 2 weeks, say it was, what's today, Thursday, every other Thursday on my Google Calendar, on my phone, it would pop up, call Ellen to review listing. Okay. And I would call them. Now, there's a little bit of prep and things that I do. We can go over in another appointment. Okay. I think I have a couple of things here. To be ready for those update calls, you need to know how many times the house was shown, what the feedback was, or the reason you don't have feedback. Okay. So don't just say, don't be the guy who once a month goes, oh yeah, I called those 3 guys, but you know, they never got back to me. Tell them at the time, but certainly in your update calls. The other thing you want to look at is just basically, you want to remember you're their marketing person, not their salesman. They're renting Berkshire Hathaway's businesses and global reach to go into business and sell one product, their home. Okay. Nobody wants to hire people and set up a company and rent space and put up a billboard and pay for newspaper advertising for their business is going to sell one product and then go out of business. So they rent us. That's what a commission salesman is. Okay. That's why we work on commission. We're their business partner and we get 6% of the take. Okay. The only thing that matters, if you're the marketing rep, the only thing that really matters is how many people walk through their door. That's all you can control. And if you're not getting that, then you have a problem. You have a problem either that your marketing sucks, which we know it doesn't. And the secondary problem is the value proposition of your product that you went into business to sell is off. Okay. You either have too high a price for anybody to buy a product like that, or you don't have enough features and benefits inside of that house to justify that price. But it's not just price, it's what do you have? Because you could take a house that should sell for $275, listed for $325, and nobody comes to see it and nobody makes offers. You don't have to lower the price to $275. You go in and redo the kitchen and maybe now it's worth it. Okay. So I want you guys to get used to not talking about price, but talking about your value quotient, your value proposition, okay? Because people don't want to hear about, we've got to lower the price, we've got to lower the price, we've got to lower the price. You want to give them an option on lowering the price. You can get out your checkbook and spend tens of thousands of dollars fixing all these things that people say they want and get up to the price level that you're asking for, or we can just keep all your money and lower the price on it. But we got to do one or the other. The balance between value and price are not in alignment. We've either got to up the value or lower the price to get it equal. Okay. So let me give you an example of you can only sell to people who are buying. Sounds kind of basic, right? If nobody's buying a pen, if there's no market for a pen with a switchblade, okay, I think there is probably though, right? Probably is. It's a small market, but let's say nobody buys them anywhere, then you can't sell one. I don't care how good you are. If there's no customer for your product, you can't sell it. Okay. So there's an easy way to find out if you missed anybody, if you lost, if a buyer arrived who should have bought your house who didn't, and that's very simple. You go in to do a search in the neighborhood or neighborhoods that could possibly contain buyers who would have bought your product. You limit the price structure enough that you're not saying, oh, here's a guy, I use Clearview Estates, for example, who bought a house for $275. Why didn't he buy our $550,000 house? I think you answered your own question. Okay. So you want to be reasonably specific, kind of like you are when you do comparables to come up with the original price. But you should always know how many people bought a product that they could have substituted your product for. Okay. So if you go in and look at homes under 200 or 2,000 square feet in Terra Vista that have sold since March 15th, okay, you're going to get a very small amount of actual buyers that arrived here looking for the product you were selling for that customer. Okay. Now, once you find any of those, you're going to have to make a good case to them as to why you didn't see it. Now, when I did this, I could tell people, Mr. Johnson, since you listed with me 90 days ago, there has been one bona fide sale in your area in and around your price structure. I spoke to the buyer's agent, okay, and what I found out was that the buyer wanted to have a home that had an existing pool. They didn't want to put their own pool in. So that's why they didn't look at your house, okay? Or they did look at your house and they found the kitchen much more desirable in that property. But I used to know, and you'd be amazed. You think other realtors are not communicative. Once they've achieved their goal, they're happy-go-lucky. They'll tell you anything. Hey, I had a customer come by and look at that. Let's see. I had a customer come by and look at my listing in Clearview, and I noticed that somebody bought yours. It's the same person, I assume. Yeah, it's Charlie Smith. Okay, yeah, Charlie Smith. He came and looked at my house that same time frame. Do you have any idea, or just tell me who the buyer's agent is? I call the buyer's agent. I tell him, I say, I'm not trying to cause trouble. I just want to give some feedback to my customer. Your customer looked at my house and then bought this house down the street. Can you give me an idea of what he saw? In the values of the two property that made him pick that thing, and I could get a lot of information. You can't get it all the time, but you can get it way more than you think you can. But that's the kind of that's the only thing that makes sense to talk to listing customers about. Okay. And you want to be the one dialing the phone. You don't want them to call you and go, I haven't talked to you in 2 weeks. What's going on? For two reasons. Number one, you've already disappointed them. They had to call you, and you're the one getting paid in the end. Okay. But number two, you've got your customer on the phone with you asking you questions that you don't have the answers for. And you know where to find them, but you're not going to sit on the phone with them while you go through all that. Okay. It's cool to be prepared and just have a checklist going through. If I can find it, I used to send out, for out-of-state guys, for example, some didn't want to talk to me, but they wanted an update. I'll send you emails that I used to send out to people to hold on to listings, to make sure that they knew that, the old John Belushi thing, for those of you who've seen the Blues Brothers movie, when Carrie Fisher's about to shoot him with a machine gun, and he says, my car broke down. I had a flat tire. It was terrible rain, flood. He goes through all these things. Somebody came in from out of town. I had to do this. I had to do that. It wasn't my fault. I swear to God. But you do need to explain to them, because in the end, all they care about is that you sell their house. They don't want to hear your damn excuses. So stay above it and don't. When somebody goes, how come you haven't sold my house? It's because of this. That's an excuse. When you call them up and give them a market review and tell them what's happened in the marketplace, and specifically tell them why, Chuck Berry bought the house down the street and not theirs, because I know this because I asked, and I'm totally on top of this, and I'm keeping track of every customer for you. Now you're just explaining to them what's going on. You're not making excuses. They didn't ask you a question. You just call into, it's all on your terms. You follow what I mean? So that kind of proactive stuff will bump up, how many of your things you can hold on to until the actual contract comes through. Okay, so if there's no missed buyers, that's that. Nobody bought a house in your neighborhood in the last month, Mr. Customer. Okay, we're still on more websites than anybody else. We still sell more product in your neighborhood than anybody else, which means our agents are seeing more buyers in your neighborhood than anybody else, those kind of things. So, and my guys know about this. I'm always in touch with my guys on it, and they would add it to the list if their buyers would let them. If there is a sale in the neighborhood, you got to find out the first thing you got to find out is, did that same person look at your house? Okay. And usually the pendings come within a week. Okay. So if a like kind and quality house on in Belmont Hills sells 3 days after somebody looked at your house in Clearview Estates, it's a good chance it's the same guy. Okay. So, you can text that buyer's agent that's listed right in your MLS on it, text them and say, hey, quick question. I know, congratulations on your sale on Run for the Roses. Can I ask if this was, Charlie Smith, the guy who looked at our house over on Spendabuck or whatever? I mean, you can have those kind of conversations. They're not giving out anything really proprietary there. So that's what I would recommend. Set up the timing, hit the timing exactly. If you say, if I tell Ellen I'm going to call her on Thursdays, if I told her that right as I did, I'd call her at 1 o'clock every other Thursday, like clockwork, to the point where if you have the listening long enough, they're literally looking at the clock going, Mark's going to call in a couple of minutes. Let's finish up with this. Okay. Because it just takes you just as long at exactly 1 o'clock as it would at 2:30 to call and make this have this conversation. Don't blame your customers that the house hasn't sold, even though we all know it's their fault. Okay, you priced it too high. I think really the buyer feedback is that our value proposition when compared to the other homes on the market is it's not holding up. It's not holding up. Talk about price, say value proposition. Okay. Price is what you pay for something. Value is what you get from something. Okay. So if somebody might, the principle, I have a sheet on this that'll explain to you, but I always tell people, because it sounds real, there's an economic theory, and basically they call it an economic theory so they can justify their degrees. It's just common sense. It's how we buy things. It's called the principle of substitution. And the main rule of the principle of substitution is, if there are 4 products that are all the same, the consumer will buy the lowest price. Duh. Of course they will. Okay. So if you have 4 identical houses being sold and 3 of them are 450 and one of them is 400, the 400 is going to sell first. 99 out of 100 times. Okay. It's never that cut and dry, but that's basically the principle that guides shopping. And then I always say the B part of the principal substitution is if there's 4 homes listed in the same neighborhood for $400,000, which one are you going to buy? The best one. Okay. So, nobody's going to pay more money for the same thing, and nobody's going to pay the same money for a lesser product. That's the principal substitution. That's what our entire pricing and developing market values is based upon, the principal substitution. I'm going to have 4 one-page sheets to go in your collateral when you get your email later. We'll go through that in a second. This is 5 tips to sharpen your pricing strategy. Something you might want to look at. As I said, there's a link in there for you. At a minimum, when you sit with a customer and develop a pricing strategy or develop a price, okay? And you guys, I don't know if Lori's been on a listing appointment with me, Sean, well, none of you have yet, but I go out on listing appointments with people. And the first thing I do to them is I tell them, listen, I'm going to talk to you a lot about numbers, but in the end, you're going to price your house at whatever you're going to price your house at. I'm not here to tell you what to price your house at. I'm here to tell you that once you decided on your price, your best chance of selling the house is with me. Okay. And here's why. You need to decide who you think can best market your house to the public, bring the most buyers to your front door. Okay. So let's go over that part first, and then we can start talking about pricing. Now, when I talk about pricing, here's what I'm talking about. And this is all I'm talking about. Okay. At the beginning, when I give you numbers, my goal is to tell you within a few dollars either way, what an appraiser walking in here tomorrow, looking at your house as collateral for the loan for the guy who's buying your house, what number would be at the end of his report. That's my job. I got to tell you that. Okay. Even if you hate the number, doesn't matter. It's still the truth. Okay. So if you got in your head, I want to sell my house for $1 million, and I tell you it's going to appraise for 425, don't be mad at me. Okay. By the way, if you want to sell your $425,000 house for $1 million, we're probably just going to exchange pleasantries. But I'm not here to tell you what you have to sell your house for. I'm going to tell you what it would appraise for, and then I'm going to tell you the pluses and minuses of moving away from that number, either up or down. That's my job. That's my experience. Okay. But in no time, you might think this is funny, Mrs. Customer, but I'm not kidding when I say this. This is true. I go into listing presentations like this where the people are talking to other agents, and this is their literal, I'm not kidding now. This is their strategy. I'm going to see 3 realtors, and whoever writes the highest number on a piece of paper, that's who I'm going to hire. Swear to God, people do that. And the reason you say it like that is they're probably doing it. They won't cop to it, but they'll know they're doing that. The person who decides how much your house is going to sell for is, to some extent, you on what you'll accept. But the largest part of what determines what your house will sell for is the principal substitution, the marketplace, the buyer, somebody we haven't met, somebody who comes from a place we might not even know where it is. They're going to arrive here one day. They're going to look at 3 or 4 houses, yours being one of them, and they're going to make a decision. Okay. And they're going to offer you a price they think is fair, and you're going to say it's too low. And that's just the way things are. One of the things I'm going to give you is an actual scientific study that says that people overvalue their own homes by somewhere between 6 and 14%. On average, tens of thousands of people interview. Okay. And we all listen to that number going, yeah. The actual hard average is 6. It's a statistics thing, what brings it up to 14, but say 6%. 6% can be a killer, especially if they're looking at legitimately their house being worth between 475 and 500. Now they're going to go to 530. That's your 6%, right? Because they're not going to use that first number. Whenever there's a range, the seller only hears the top number and the buyer only hears the bottom number. And that's why you have negotiations. Okay. So when you leave a listing appointment with a signed listing contract for X price, here's what you have to have at a minimum. If you have the right price, that's awesome. Okay, that's best. But at a minimum, you need a price that's too high. Okay, that you have clearly explained is too high. Okay, who is it too high for? Using my appraisal thing, I'm not telling you what I'm going to pay for your house. I'm just telling you what the appraiser will say people can borrow for. Okay. So if I say that number's 400,000 and you want to list at 450, okay, I can tell you for absolute, I can be totally straight with you. Listen, I just need to make sure we're really clear on this. If a buyer comes and offers on your house and they're approved for a loan, okay, but they don't have any more money than they need to put their down payment down, pay all their closing costs, move and come into your home, okay? If they don't have any more than that, and they buy your house for 450, that deal will not go through. The bank will not tell them it's worth 4. They will not lend them 80% of 450 or 95% of 450. They will not do that. They will lend them money based on a collateral value of 400,000. I need to make sure you know that because it's going to limit your buyer pool. Okay. So at a minimum, tell them that much truth. Okay. And just take the listing, because if I don't, the next one's going to come in and say, oh, sure, I can get you 450, and they're going to get it. And then they're going to slowly reduce it down to the real price. Better is to have, okay, let's go ahead and take a flyer. Let's go ahead and put it up at 450. But if in the first 2 weeks we don't get at least 3 showings, okay, and or an offer, and if in the first month we don't get an offer from anybody, we have problems getting, if we don't get any showings or not enough showings, that's a sign of a price being wrong. And if we don't get any offers, even though we've had showings, that's a huge sign that your price is wrong. Why don't we say this? Let's go ahead and list this thing for a month at 450. If we don't get an offer, or, if we don't get an offer, then we drop it down to 425. And if we don't get an offer within 60 days, I'll even go 90 days if you want to, we'll go ahead and drop it down to the appraised value of 400. Does that make sense? If they say yes, write it down on a piece of paper that they know you're writing it down on. Okay. Take a picture and text it to them if you want to. It's not a binding contract, but it's a great thing to go back into their text and go, remember when we looked at this and agreed to this? It's right in your phone. Okay. So it's better to leave that listing with your overpriced initial offering with a firm, agreed upon plan to get it to the right price as soon as possible. Okay. Now, the other thing I would say is, if you have a plan to lower it to the actual market value in 90 days, get a 9-month contract. I'd like to have 6 months to sell it at the right price. Is that fair? We're kind of business partners here. Is that fair? Whatever you got to do. Okay. And then obviously the best thing is to convince them that pricing it right at the beginning is the best thing they can do. And why is the most important reason to price it right at the beginning in the modern internet world? Why do we want to have everything exactly right on the moment we hit submit, including the price?
So it doesn't get stale.
Because the most likely purchasers of the house that exist on the day you list it are going to get an email from you they're going to see that thing the first day, the first hour, the first minute, some of them that you've listed it. So why would you want to put your worst foot forward to your best customers? Okay. I would say you would have more of a chance of selling a $400,000 house, more of a chance than trying to sell a $400,000 house for $450,000. I would say you would have a better chance of getting more than 400 by listing it at 400 and having 2 or 3 of those 15 people who got that email get excited and go against each other. Okay. But you got to convince the buyer of that. It's hard because we walk in there and we're afraid we're not going to get the listing. It's a completely zero-sum game. Okay. You're either going to get a commission off this deal or you're going to get nothing at all but a story. I got a lot of those stories because I used to walk out on them because I had enough listing. I will tell you the truth, and you'll believe me if you think about it. If you currently, if over a 5-year period of time, you never had less than 10 active rooftop listings, would it be that hard to walk out of somebody who was selling at a price you had less than a 1% chance of getting it done? It's so freaking easy to walk out of those listings. Okay. But when you got no listings or not enough listings, I get it. And you've got to, at some point, you've got to decide for yourself that it's more important to tell your customer the truth and deal honestly with them than it is to not get the listing. Okay. And I believe when you're blunt, and I do have somebody who's been at a listing appointment with me, Rachel. What did we tell them that house would sell for? 850 in Hunt Club?
You said
here's
840.
Here's what it'll appraise for, and it was 850, 840, whatever. He wanted to sell it for $1.1 million.
Yes, he did.
And he was going off basically, it would cost him $1.3 million to build this house today. Okay.
It did cost $1.2 million.
Which is ridiculous. Okay. But anyway, what did the house sell for?
868.
Okay.
8 months later. 8 months.
8 months. And how long a listing agreement do we get?
A year.
Yeah. So we were okay.
And it sold within 6 weeks after we finally got them below 900,000.
And we were very, very clear with them. And I told him, I said, I always use hyperbole when I make a point. So it wouldn't surprise me if I said these exact words. Now, if you tell me you want to list this thing for $2 million, I'm going to say, I don't want to jeopardize our friendship, but I know a couple of clowns in the real estate business will take that listing, and will smoke up your ass, but I won't. But I don't want to say $1 million, it's an $850,000 listing. I don't want to say, if you say you want to get $1.1 million for this place, I'm not going to take your listing because that's what he wanted. You with me? That's what he wanted. So we
put it up for that.
What's that?
We put it up for 1.2.
I told him I would. Yeah. I said, listen, I'm going to put it up. I'm going to hope to God I'm wrong. I'm going to hope to God somebody comes here and wants to drop $1.1 million on you, and you get to laugh at Casper, who tried to get you to sell it for way less. I hope to God I'm wrong. I almost never am. Mm-hmm. But it's happened before. I'm sure it'll happen again. I hope you're the guy. But when it starts to dawn on you that these are real numbers, don't be too proud to come down. I mean, that's what you got to do, in the end, if you really want to sell it. And then the other thing with him that was easy is once you leave the house, you have a bucket of money with a hole in the bottom. Okay. And if enough drains out, it doesn't matter if you get your price. You already lost it in taxes, insurance, and all the other things. At least when somebody's living in a house, they're getting a value, of the home they're living in. All right. I'm not going to go through a lot of these links, but this guy, I want you, this particular guy, I'm just going to show you what he looks like. I like this guy, and I like him for the same reason I like other coaches and teachers, because he says exactly what I say. That's why I like him. Okay. He's not particularly engaging or whatever. He's just come to the same conclusions that I have. And he's going to go over what I call internet pricing. There is no reason to list a home for 364. There's no reason.
Price bracketing. All right. Beautiful, beautiful question. Hi, Kathleen. How are you?
So this guy, by the way, on pricing strategies, this guy's got more content on YouTube than anybody. So if you think he's got something to say, roll down and subscribe to his page so you can just look at all his content down the road. Okay. But what he's going to do in this video is talk about what I talk about. He talks about brackets. I don't believe this as much as him. I don't believe people go in to our marketplace with with a $500,000 budget and put 450 to 500. I don't believe they do that. I think the only one that they actually limit is the high, not the low. So, and we've had this debate, okay? He says, don't do 199, do 200, because you'll get the or don't do 249, do 250, because you'll get the guys listing from 1 to 2, and you'll get the people also the ones 150. So you'll get both of those. I think that's crap. I think that's probably true, but I think people go way under their top budget. I think if their budget is 5, they might put 3 to 5, or they might just, if the website allows 500 and under. But I don't think they go 450 to 500. I don't think they even go 400 to 500, because if there was a perfect house for 399, they'd want to see it. Okay. So that's part of why I don't agree with this. He agrees with it. I also, in the outline, I put another video in here, and she's going to make that same point. Okay. My thing is, 2 things can be true at a time. There's no difference in the views you're going to get for a listing and the amount of people who are going to consider your listing for themselves if you price a house at 236 or if you price a house at 250. The exact same people will see both listings. Okay. 99.99, so many, all of them. Okay. You just need to get on their screen to get considered. Okay. If you made a case to me, well, Mark, if you list it for 2 or 335, more, if you had identical house on identical lots, one for 335 and one for 350, okay, the 335 would sell first. Yeah, but 1, no houses are identical. 2, nobody would be afraid to offer 335 on a 350. Okay. So the process from the buyer's standpoint is shows up in your search results. Step 1. You see the listing and are interested enough to look at more more information about it. Step 2. You place the home on your show list, on your C list, whatever you want to call it. Okay. Step 4, you actually go to the home. Step 5, you pick it. Okay. Because step 5 is irrelevant. Your job is to get them from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 and in the front door. Once they've crossed the threshold in the home, your job as their marketing representative is over. Now it's up to the house to sell the house, the value proposition to sell the house. Okay. So the expectation that you want to tell people about is, I will get the most people to consider your home, which, if you know anything about economics and statistics, means you're going to sell faster for more money on average than anybody else, if I can get the most people in there. Okay. Watch this guy, because he's got a lot of good advice. I just believe 2 things can be true at the same time. Okay. I believe that it is stupid to list for 236 when you can list for 249.9 or 249. I never liked the 9999. I like the $1,000 under. So 250 is 249. But again, your Mileage may vary depending on your seller. But to give up any more than that 1,000 is ridiculous. Okay. There's nothing in it for you other than pissing off your seller. Okay. Or you maybe even losing the listing because somebody offered more. What if somebody won the listing by putting 250 and you lost the listing by putting 236? Probably wasn't worth it, was it? Okay. Now, once you agree to that, it's okay to say to them, the correct price for this house based on appraisal value is 236, but there's no difference. Now tell them there's no difference in the amount of people who are going to see your home if we listed it at 250. So on the off chance that someone falls in love and gives us a little more than market value, that's a good price to come into. But Mr. Customer, let me make this very clear to you. Okay, because it won't be when it happens. You'll tell me something different and you won't be trying to lie to me. It'll just be what you remember. That's why I'm picking this out. I said 236. If we list for 250 and we get an offer of 236, you need to evaluate that offer based upon this guy offered you full market price. Okay, you might want more. I'm okay with that. Okay, but don't tell me it's, we're not coming down 14,000. We're coming down to the actual market value. That's not coming down. This is about going up, not coming down. All right. I don't know if any of you guys know this guy. I know Rachel probably. Well, Rachel's not old enough. She came from the right place. But I always talk about the doing 249 instead of 250 is Earl Scheib pricing. And this Earl Scheib, he would paint your car for $99.95. Okay. Do you know who he is, Rachel? People up your way talk about him?
No, you're just reminding me, we had a guy, Crazy Eddie. It was the same situation.
Yeah, well, Earl Scheib was the original. But here's
Yeah.
actually Earl Scheib in 1982. I found this. I was cracking up when I saw the video. I saw, or the picture. I saw this.
Prep it first because they won't do anything. They won't even wash it.
182, they probably would.
No, they didn't.
No,
Not in Charlotte.
was that what it was?
You taped it all too.
What do they say? The juice ain't worth the
Oh,
squeeze?
God. Oh, any car for just $99.95.
This week only, you'll get polyurethane additive free. A
love
$19.95
that.
bag.
I've been doing that impression forever and nobody knows who it is, So it was good to be able to show it to you. But again, you take whichever position you want. Do not lose the fact that 234 is a dumb price. Okay. 234 should give you one of two things to do. One, get them, allow them to list their home at 249. Okay, get the benefit of being higher up on the pricing scale. Or if you get close enough, if you were to come down to 225, we could get this done really quick. And the chances are we get more money from it because people would see the value. If more than one person gets excited about the house at the same time, we could even get more than that. And most people who list a home for 230 would take 225, even when they say they won't. I just had one with Lucy. We were between 425 and 450. Okay, 450 is what they wanted. 425 is what I thought was more realistic, but they said absolutely, positively can't be a nickel less than 425. Offer came in for 415. We went to 420. We got the deal done. Okay. So never believe that either. But I always tell people I'd rather us have negotiate out 3 offers and not come to a fruition than for me to not screw up any mythical offers we never saw from people we don't know. I'd rather be negotiating with real people who want your house. So that's the advantage to going on the lower end of it. But again, think like a buyer. Think how a buyer goes through the process. That's the point to all this kind of pricing. But if you watch this and you start to understand it and you start to be able to explain it, you will sound like a fucking expert. Okay. When I go through stuff like this, all I ever see in the room is, yeah, I understand. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. But again, they're hiring an expert, even though you don't see yourself as an expert, that's what they want. So show a little expertise. Okay. It's good to learn this stuff, not just to read it or listen to it, but to then understand it so you can communicate it to other people. You know, you're never going to be perfect, but with authority and confidence if they know that you're on top of this stuff. And this is the kind of thing they want to know. You know, I know all the tricks in the real estate business to convince sellers to do things, but in the end, the only thing you're really hiring me for is to get your house sold. So I study buyers because we're going to need one of them to get your house sold. Here's what I found out about buyers. People want to hear that stuff. It makes sense. Okay. Man, this thing is slowed down to a crawl. I'm to the point now where I'm looking up to see if your head's moving, Rachel, to make sure I haven't froze up. It's going so slow. All right. I don't have much more for you guys. I'll be finishing up in a second. I just want to let you know what else is here. As I said, this is the counter argument to the exact pricing in a little more detail than the other guy goes. These are our listings that we have right now. We have 27 rooftops currently listed and not pending. And then I just went through a little bit the pricing. You know, the red ones, they're kind of in the middle of two things. Now, the other thing is, again, I just put them based on that, but this is the original pricing for this one, Cobblestone, Tammy's. She had it at exactly the right price. Okay. It was perfect. Okay. But when she dropped it, she could only get them to drop by 10. I'm telling you this right now. I wouldn't do it. I know why you're doing it. I know that if I get them down to 439, in another month, I'll get them down to 429. And then in another month, I'll get them down to 4.25. Just tell them no. Just tell them, listen, you know, I want to get more people to see your house, and that's not going to be accomplished by $10,000. So what's in it for you? You're lowering your price for absolutely no benefit. If you can look at me in the eye and tell me that, you know, somebody's going to be afraid to offer you 439, I'll go with it. Okay. I don't think they're going to be. I don't think there's a person on the planet Earth, if you have a 449 list, that's going to be afraid to offer you 439. So you're not accomplishing anything till you go to 4.25.
Not that I want to admit this, but you have Russ under my lamppost catastrophe.
What's that? No, I was going to say the same thing there. Now, this took a while on lamppost. Okay.
Well, that was him and then me.
Where am I?
Up.
Up?
Lamppost is me, but you have Russ. It says Russ.
Why did I say Russ? Is he still on there?
No, he was the original, but then remember that whole debacle?
I might have hit Rachel and thought it was going to go Rachel and it went Russ. It does autofill when I'm filling them. It's all right. Notice this one has started at 429. So, and that mistake was Russ's. I think Russ did the original thing. And how many drops did we make from 429 to get down to the 395? Do you remember?
Oh, every step. So we went from 429. I got them down to 415. We got an offer for 405, went pending. The people backed out because they got a better house. She then wanted to go up to 420. We then went to 420, back down to 415, down to 405. Now we're at 395, and today I am lowering it to 389.
Okay.
They're lunatics.
Yep. So we've only got 3 that are on those exact numbers, right? And some of these yellow ones, again, Paula, that's exactly what I would price it at. I wouldn't go 1.1. I'd want at least have a 0 in there. Again, Earlshire pricing. The other guy says, go ahead at 1.1. Not a real big believer.
But again, that one doesn't have a pool either. It has like a little dipper thing.
Yeah, whatever it is. I'm not talking about the relative value of any of these homes. I'm not making comments on that. But like this one, 425, there was really no need to drop it. again after that until you got down to 500, or in my case 499. Okay. It's come down a couple already though. God bless Paul. At 56 days, she's already had a couple of drops. Okay. But anyway, this is just to give you an idea. We talk about this stuff, but people don't do it. 660. Just tell them, you know, you come from 485, the benefit is at 475. Anything else is just a precursor to another drop. So here's a good time if I was doing that. And again, I don't know anything about specific listings. I'm just using these for examples, just looking at the numbers, not the people. But if I was going from 685 down to 660, you have an opportunity to do one of two things. Well, if you really want this to change the dynamics, you'll want to go down to 650. Okay, if you're just looking to make a move, go down to 675, because the same people are going to see your house listed at 675 as the ones who would see it at 660. You with me? And sometimes if you're saying, oh, you just come down 10. Well, if you're not sure, why don't we come down to 675 today, and then we'll look at it for 30 days. And if we don't get any traction in 30 days, we'll go ahead and then just drop it down to that 650. Does that make sense? You know, don't just give stuff away. Get something in return. That's kind of a mania in sales. All right, and managing people. But there's a lot of good stuff in here. Take a look at some of the links. Save what you want. The four pass outs I'm going to give you. Let me find them real quick. Let me make sure maybe it's only 3. I don't remember. I'm old and feeble-minded, as you know. I can't believe how slow the computer gets when I'm on. All right. What did I call it? Pricing? Pricing collateral, yeah. I collect a lot of this stuff and I look it up. I never try to reinvent the wheel. I always figure somebody's already done it. Why do I need to do it? And here's one I stole from somebody's flyer. Reasons to reduce the price on your home. You're drawing too few lookers. You're drawing lots of lookers but no offers. Your home's been on the market longer than similar homes. You have a deadline. You need to be in Cleveland by November, whatever that might be. You can't or won't or don't want to make improvements to the house, do upgrades to the house to change your value proposition. So you need to reduce the price to set it correct. Okay. Or the competition's changed. You know, we had this home priced at 550, but since we went on the market, there's 3 other competition homes that are priced well below that. Do we want to look at that again? So these are things. I kept a little thing that it's a real estate award-winning negotiating real estate attorney to show them, just to give them ideas. It's nice to have stuff like this at your disposal when you're having these conversations, so they don't think, because in the end, the default position is, you miserable realtor, you just want to lower the price so you can get a quick commission because you're too lazy to work for it. As stupid as that sounds to us, it sounds smart and right on the money for them. This is a great little piece that a Keller Williams agent put together. I just changed his name out for I and me, okay, so that you could use it. Okay, kind of nice. And then I also put together a sheet on the principle of substitution. In economic theory, there's a thing called the principle of substitution. Sounds really college-like, but it's really common sense, and it's basically something we already know. It just puts a name to it, and it basically means that if there's 2 consumer items that are identical, the consumer will buy the one that's priced the lowest. And if there's 3 products that are priced identically, the person's gonna pick the thing with the most features, the most value to them. The best one of the 3. And that's how real estate works. That's how everything works. That's how everything works. Okay? So I'm gonna attach those 3 to your collateral, and I'm gonna call it a meeting. Thank you for coming. And congratulate Lisa,
Thank you very much.
getting everything done so she can sit for her test and be humbled by the state of Florida.
Welcome,
sir.
Lisa.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And Mark, I think you had it under internet pricing.
What's that now?
You had it under internet pricing, I think you said,
Internet.
with what one of the emails that you'll be forwarding us. You said you weren't sure which had it under. I wrote it down as internet pricing.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
I,
Okay.
I'm thinking that's what you were talking about. I was trying to follow along with you said, look at this guy on the first clip that you showed us.
I got you. I got you.
Thanks for your
Okay.
time.
All right, take care, ladies. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye,
You
guys.
too.
Bye. I was